every stand, guys, every stand should have a mock scrape, period. There's no reason that, whether it's a gun stand, whether it's, and especially a bow stand, 25 yards in front of that stand you're bow hunting, and there's a big variance there with the gun hunting situation, what you're seeing, what you're looking over. But as far as the bow hunting setups, guys, there's no reason that you should ever hang a tree stand without a mock scrape. And here's the reason. Once you get to this time of the year, you don't have to go search for those attractions. Those attractions are already built into your playbook, right? They're already built into your strategy, into your arsenal. That's where I find most folks the hunts start going downhill at this point. The reason is we start looking for that sign, guys. What that tells me is you didn't do your homework, you didn't do your legwork, you didn't do your preparation, and that spot isn't stunk up, let's say, or being promoted with them preoral glands and that interdigital gland all over that line of travel and in that scrape throughout the entire year. Guys, there's a video here that will tie into this at some point here through the pre-rut and the rut. But you hear everyone talk about these scrapes, being opened up and they're urinating in them, and they're, it must be the rut because the does are now in estrus. Guys, the does are so far from peak estrus right now, it's not even funny. Now, we will touch on something here in a later video. I do believe that there are does coming into heat, but it's very uncommon. But these does cycle every 28 days. Doesn't mean that they're in a peak estrus every 28 days, but they're cycling every 28 days. So something to keep in mind. But here's the deal, guys. This scrape should be working with you 365 days a year. Because the other scrapes, they're not working 365 days a year. Your mock scrape should be such, you hear the word community scrape, right? These mock scrapes in front of every stand should become a community scrape because they're using them all year long. Not just the bucks, not just the does, not just the fawns, everybody. Every age spectrum of deer in your neighborhood are pulled into that spot. Absolutely. Building and promoting a line of travel and promoting the magnet power that mock scrape has, right? So I don't have to go search for them because that's been cooking all year. I highly recommend, just if there's a lot of naysayers out there, there's a lot of people that say you gotta hunt the latest greatest sign, guys. I'm telling you, here's the deal. I don't go looking for the mock scrapes at all when I'm on the farm. If I come across one when I'm blood trailing a deer, if there's one on the edge of the field that I pull the buggy up next to, something like that, when I'm out looking at the food plots, filling the feeders, whatever the case may be, I cut it down because it draws more attention to your mock scrape. I can honestly tell you guys that probably the native scrapes on my farm have probably went to down to 10%. So there's probably 80%, 90% less scrapes on my farm that there was when I started. And that's how you need to gauge that. And the reason for that is they're on the mock scrapes at the stand. There's not one mock scrape out of the 12 that I have. I think I've got 14 because of some gun situations. But on my 75 acres, you guys, that 72 acres, that's not the pinnacle of that movement. Yes, there's going to be mock scrapes. Yes, there's going to be rubs. Yes, there's going to be stuff outside of that stand location. But it's not the 365-day-a-year magnet that a mock scrape can be. So highly, highly recommend that, guys, because what this does at the end of the story, at the end of the rant here, right on the private land side, it keeps you out of trouble. I have no intentions of making a drastic move to go find something because I know there's nothing better than what I've got, period. It sounds goofy, I know, it sounds ridiculous, but it's the God's honest truth. So, lease land. Sometimes on a lease land situation, guys, your hands you're kind of handcuffed, right? Your hands are tied. Because you can't manipulate that, some cases, right? You can't manipulate the land, you can't manipulate, deer movement, you can't build better habitat, stuff like that, right? So, you need to incorporate the mock scrape strategy even more so on a leased property than you would if you privately owned it. And the reason for that is because if you can draw that attention to you instead of you going in and finding that, you have a lot higher chance of keeping that land on pressure, just like private ground, right? The thing that I see a lot of folks overlooking on the lease property is this. So two things. One, they're wanting to make a spot, something that it's never going to be, right? So we start going in, and right now the word Hail Mary is probably something that a lot of folks are going through on these lease. You got all this money tied up into it. You're traveling to these properties, and they start pushing in and start using scents and start throwing everything at the wall already this time of the year, guys. That shouldn't even be in the strategy right now, right? So lease property, guys, like I said, amplify that stand and go the extra mile to make sure that stand's in the right spot to begin with on a leased piece of property. And you have to be, so can you connect all your stands together with a mulch trail and a bunch of hinge cuts and stuff like that you could if you owned it? No. But I think if you go the extra mile and treat it the same way from an outside-in approach that you do with a privately owned piece of ground, it's not as far-fetched as a lot of folks think it is. And to finish this, a lot of landowners anymore, guys, will let you do habitat work if you're hunting a property that if you don't want it, someone else is going to lease it. And the reason for that is the land value and the lease value is way higher, right? So it might be something that you want to talk to the landowner about. Most of them, I've never had a landowner or a leased property that wouldn't allow you to hang a mock scrape. So the lease title, the pinnacle of this piece right here, guys, is this. If you do nothing else to a leased property, make sure it has a mock scrape. It'll, like I said, it'll keep you out of trouble, right? But you just have to go the extra mile. You really have to focus on more of those pinches, more of those bottlenecks, more of that native sign that's already there, but not internal. So there's a topic or a term that I'm going to touch on here, guys, that covers all of this, right? And you've heard me say this before. On every farm, there's always going to be the spot that has the most sign, the best spot on a farm that you should never hunt. And that's what happens this time of the year, this time of October, is everybody finds these scrapes and they start, and they're opened up, and everybody gets this, pre-rut and rut bug, and it doesn't last very long because they get blown out. So in this piece here, guys, these two pieces of this puzzle right here, more so, if you do find a active scrape, right? If you haven't taken my advice and you are going and searching for this stuff and you find a mock scrape, do not, I repeat, do not hang a camera on that mock scrape unless it's 12 foot in the air, somewhere that, and I wouldn't even do that, guys. I would find a spot that leads to that spot. Maybe it sounds goofy, maybe 10 yards, 20 yards from it on the trail that's going to it. And the reason for that is, guys, the reason that he chose that spot to scrape is he knows everything around it. One wrong move, one square box on a tree that wasn't there, that causes probably 90% of active scrapes to go down. And everybody's got this. It's like the October lull, right? Nobody wants to hear this. But what happens, guys, is this. That scrape then goes dormant. Well, he must have moved on. Well, scrapes aren't as powerful as they used to be. These are all the excuses that I hear, right? It's not the case. He would rather come back to that. There's a reason that he put that there. It might be multiple deer coming there to use that, guys. So often that it gets shut down. So let's jump into this side of it right here, the public land. We find these scrapes. This is the piece where you can, and probably have to, go in and find this active these active scrapes if you're hunting public ground, right? So, not as easy as private ground. Your hands aren't as tied as you are on leased ground, but you get to public ground and you can make mistakes, right? If you hang a camera on that and it shuts down and you make a mistake, you go in there and you bump him or you put a little too much pressure on it, guess what? Where I'm originally from in the state of Michigan, there's hundreds of thousands of acres to make those mistakes on. Go somewhere else and keep on him and find him. A lot of times, guys, this journey on public ground, I've done this, is that public ground chase might go, I don't even know how, this 5 miles away, you know. Here's this buck that I found and he ends up, you know, getting killed, or we killed him on public ground 5 miles away. And the reason for that is, guys, is they're covering such a large volume. And the reason for that is because of the way that the states do their habitat, I shouldn't even say habitat, but timber management. Your habitat is spread out over such large amounts of, they're managing for big, beautiful timber. They're not managing for wildlife in most cases. And what happens is it spreads this movement all over. The home range on public ground, home range of bucks, mature bucks in general, on public ground is way, way more than it is in a private, in a large area is predominantly privately owned. So what you'll find, guys, is you're probably going to find less activity, probably going to find less scrapes, right? But that allows, my opinion is this, from my public hunting ground experience, guys, is this. And it's very addictive. I got into the public ground hunting thing a long time ago, guys, because of where I was born and raised. It's everywhere, right? There are some great pieces, but the reason that is fragmented is, as much as it is, has a lot to do with the timber management of the states, right? Especially the state of Michigan. And then what happens is there's an influx of people searching for these this latest and greatest sign. So it just compounds that problem, right? It just spreads this movement everywhere. These deer are getting bumped. Here's the sad truth, guys. A lot of those deer, if someone is doing their due diligence and putting effort into their property, especially if it's a property that can house more deer, or is you know, has a you know, not too far away from the public ground, this ground is what's benefiting from all of this, is because every time that you go in and you push the envelope in these spots, it just makes sense, right? If I were a deer, I'd want to go somewhere where I'm not getting bumped. This word right here, guys, right now, is what makes most properties, probably the majority of properties, fail. Searching. You're searching for the latest and greatest sign. Just stop searching. Know where you're going and or have it built. There's so much, guys, there's so much power, whether all three of these, doing the homework before, getting that job done before, and letting that spot cook and letting it work for you. So try it, right? So let's jump into this side of it, guys. Why I don't use lures anymore, scents. So if you are going, let's just start this. If you are going to use any lures, reach out to Tom Whitty at Nature's Best Deer Scents and Attractions out of Michigan. It's a Reed City address up towards Hawkins, where I grew up. Guys, it'll be the best decision you ever made. That estrus and that urine is actually pan collected. Tom has what he calls a tarsal gland mix that he does too. And that used to be a joke between us for years. I've always told him is a lot of folks, like we're going to talk about right now, that a lot of folks take a tarsal gland synthetic or Tom's real collected urine, and they put that, and Tom does as well, they put that on the scrape. I've never seen a buck go up to a scrape, guys, and put his tarsal gland on a licking branch and rub it all over a licking branch. Like I always say, it'd make a great video, right? It'd make a cool trail camera video. I've never seen it happen. Don't put it on the scrape, guys. Now, there's maybe a way to use that. That gel that Tom has is great. I've seen it work. I've actually had Years ago when I was in Illinois, we used James Valley scents, and you'd put it on Q-tips and hanging at different wind zones. I actually had a buck on film one time stick the Q-tip in his nose, 2.5-year-old 8-point walking around with that Q-tip stuck in his nose. It was comical, right? Actually had a client in the stand, and it was great. But Tom's gel, it's kind of the same deal, right? Don't put it on the scrape though, or the licking branch, guys. Put it in the scrape, right? And as heavy as that is, it will just sit there and it's kind of just bakes. So here's the fail. Let's jump to the board here, guys. So this is your promoted line of travel. This is your stand. First of all, this is your access into your stand. And what most people do, so this is your licking branch, hanging right in the line of travel, right? This is what happens. Most people get out here and they come in and they walk from here out here to check this, go past the stand, and they're putting this urine and estrus or whatever the case is in that spot, and then they're making their way back. Guys, you just contaminated this whole area. And it's so here's the downfall of using that and thinking that you're actually making that spot better, right? Here's the deal, guys. You are actually promoting worse downwind movement than I don't know, man. It's very, very high on the destruction chart, if you will, of the stand. And here's the reason. If you're hunting this stand, guys, you're going to be hunting this stand on a northerly winds of some sort, right? You go out here and you dose the scrape up, or you put that urine in the scrape. Guys, the only way that a buck can cruise down here, you're hoping that it's a quartering wind that he's getting this before he gets to it. But most of the time, guys, this situation's happening. He's going down back through here, hopefully in front of the stand, but a lot of times it's 50 yards. In some areas, guys, depending on the vegetation, that buck can scent check that from 100 yards away. You add thermals into it. What happens is you're making this a huge, huge issue. You better hope and go the extra mile, guys, to be building blockers in here so he can't get here. He has to stay, maybe cheats it a little bit, right? Comes in and J hooks into this, whatever the situation is. So you're sitting in the stand thinking that you're bettering the stand. Guys, you're actually not gaining anything other than contaminating the area. You're contaminating this whole area, and it's just impossible for that buck to scent check it when you're there to hunt it. So think about that, guys. I encourage you to look at this strategy right here. The best way, guys, if you are going to use lures or you're going to sit on these, and I'll tell you here why the mock scrape works better. And the reason for that is, guys, it's a training feature, right? They're used to coming to that spot so much throughout the entire year that the scrape itself, so here's what we've got, right? So that same line of travel, that same stand is here. Our access is the same way. That licking branch is here, right? What you'll find, guys, is this. That interdigital stink in between there, that interdigital gland that has all that stink of all deer and the does have that in between their hoofs, guys. Throughout the entire year, you're just peppering this line of travel, right? So now that's the scent that and plus what they are putting on a licking branch and urinating in that scrape or leaving that, pre-orbital scent on that vine, guys. That's the scent that you're wanting them to read as he's coming down. Now you got more of a chance to have that scrape productive and get more of a wind value to it. It's because no matter which way he's coming, this wind that you're hunting this on, right, he's got his nose on the ground because that's all stunk up. So here is the piece of the puzzle, guys, is this. Remember, this scrape, just because it's a mock scrape, guys, and you're able to hunt this and this wind's good for you, which way is that buck coming into this to scent check it? You have to know the wind and you have to know how he's hunting it. The reason that you're hunting it and he is hunting it, usually, sadly, are two different times and two different reasons. So you need to take that hurdle completely out of it. And if you're going to hunt that scrape, guys, you have to know which scrape to hunt. Don't just hunt a scrape that you found searching in the middle of your property, because now there's 360 degrees. There's 360 degrees of options that gets that buck to that spot. You're going to get yourself in trouble. You might get lucky the first time you hunt it because he just doesn't know you're there, and this time of the year they don't start, they're not thinking as strong with their brain, and then that gets worse as the year goes on, or the year goes on, the rut. You might get away with it, guys, but it's not. More you hunt it, the worse it gets, right? So you need to find these spots. If you find these scrapes and it's in a spot where he can scent check that from the downwind side, you got to go somewhere else. Keep moving down the chain until you find one that, as a blocker, has some reason, a terrain feature that keeps him. He's got enough room to J-hook, but he can't get completely around it. So if you're going to use these scents, guys, like from Nature's Best, going that extra 25 yards or that 20 yards to the scrape, guys, is huge. Get in the stand, use a scent dripper or something that's just dripping that on there. There's all kinds of things that we're going to talk about that you could possibly look at doing. Don't go out there to that scrape. The reason that stand, especially on private ground, is built, guys, is that habitat's close. And with over the next couple of weeks, you're probably in better stands that habitat's even closer. When you're hunting closer to bedding, you are asking to blow the situation. You've only got small chances, guys. So make sure, drippers are great, something like that, guys. I'm not saying that scents don't work, but you have to look beyond why or how that they're able to scent check it when you're able to hunt it, right? If you're hunting it on a good wind for you and he's able to get on the downwind side of you to scent check it, you're forcing the envelope. You are creating an issue where he can possibly get downwind of you. You're making the situation worse in a lot of cases. Now, if you drive into that spot, you're taking e-bike past it on the way in, you can ditch the e-bike behind your stand, something like that. There is rhyme and a time and a reason to get that. Or you're just in a spot where you didn't promote bedding and you can see a long ways, which kind of tells me that you're probably in the wrong spot this time of the year anyway. You can get to that spot and get back in the stand without getting busted, but guys, it's such so small of an opportunity there. I just encourage you to let that cook and not use these mock scrapes. Let them perform the way they need to for you, not just mock scrapes, but the scrape. So if you are going to use that estrus, guys, when it gets to that point to use the estrus on a mock scrape, consider this. If you can't hunt that the next day, I'm not dosing it, right? If you go to leave that stand, or you're going to hunt it today and you can hunt it within over a 28-hour period, because 2 weeks from now, here in the Midwest, advance of the month if you're down south, we'll just label it the pre-rut. If you're going to hunt that spot in the pre-rut and you can hunt it 28 hours later because they're in standing heat maybe for that 28-hour period, then you dose it with some estrus, and if he comes back in the middle of the night, maybe you got a chance for him to cycle back through in daylight hours when you're there. If you can't hunt it within that 28-hour window, don't dose it, because what you're telling him is you're sending mixed signals, guys. They know. I've seen more scrapes go south by people just keep putting them estrus on it, and it's not common, right? And to be honest with you guys, if it's only in that spot, if you think about this, if that spot is the only spot with estrus and it doesn't leave there, you're forcing him, in my opinion, in a lot of cases, you actually force him to put more miles on, right? Someone's been there. If he scent checks it and he does buy into that, like Nature's Best, Tom actually pan collects that estrus, and he knows it's estrus because he puts a lot of those does into heat. You put that stuff on there, guys, you are making him search, because that interdigital or that urine that's down the back of her leg is not going to be on that line of travel. So you're forcing him to travel a long ways searching for it. The best case is if you can hunt it the next or close to it and only dose it at certain times, he'll know that maybe he stays closer, right? But when he stays closer, you're fueling the fire, you're bringing him closer, he's putting more attention onto it. What's to say that you can get to that, from the stand to that, and dose it without getting busted? It's a risky business. So them are kind of the scrape hunt topics that jump out to me, guys. If you can do anything to get that spot promoted before and let it work for you, let it cook, it will produce. Just believe in it, guys. If you have to go looking, study the map, know where you're going. Just don't take the backpack and a bunch of cameras and go internally of your farms or blow a lease out or trample all over public ground, because you're going to make the situation worse than you could ever make it better. Thanks, guys.